Hey, welcome guys. We have just received our Tamiya or Tamiya M36 Jackson. So, let's flip it over to the bench. Let's see what's inside. Alright, so the M36, brand new as of July 2025 when we are, I actually think it's technically August. But anyways, released in July, and I think a very, very exciting kit. I think most people are probably going to agree because tank destroyers are awesome. Now, we get two different schemes. A little bit hard to fit it into the frame here, but we have our base green, kind of the olive drab, and then it's from 1945, as well as what we will be doing, which is our winter camouflage. Now, more on the camouflage patterns. We get our background information, which we have a nice little history about, pretty much about tank destroyers, and then the production of the M36 and its existence in post-war. So, vehicle started in action 1944, very, very late war. Just over 1,000 were produced. So, pretty common. 1,000 being produced in the last really year and a half of the war. This was America's attempt at, you know, trying to, we'll say, even the odds of the armor battle. Beautiful Tamiya paint guide, as we are pretty much accustomed to seeing at this point. We have our olive drab version, which very nicely highlights some of the different colors of the interior and kind of solves one of those, at least a lot of these interiors used to be white in the old directions, which is silly. But they would be green, because if you had a green vehicle, why would you have a white kind of bomb target, right? Anyways, really, really cool. We get this winter camouflage pattern. These are really, really small details, but it's always a question of were the tracks painted? You know, would they have white on them? Would the tools have white on them? You know, were they painted? You can do your own research on these kind of things. I like to have it in the paint guide, so really small detail, but really glad they fit that there. I also like how we get, and I've said this before in other reviews, that we get some kind of key terms here. So these little things on the front we now know are auxiliary armor boss. We know we have our 90mm gun. We get one color reference picture. And then we get a good amount. This we'll get to in a second, is I think one of the most exciting parts of this kit. But we also get some action photos. We have an action photo that pretty clearly is in the winter somewhere with some nice snow camo. And that is our color guide. Next, onto the instructions, which we will look at for about a minute. There is not a lot to show or discuss here. You can find them on ScaleMates. I'm sure someone has already uploaded them. Pretty standard. We're going to do our own lower hull construction, move on to bogies, Lincoln length tracks, which look amazing, that we'll look at in a second. The big thing I wanted to point out here is that there are no screwdrivers or anything needed. Screwdriver, I'm losing the term, drill bit. There's no drill bit that will be needed to construct this vehicle, which I think is very, very nice. And we do get some nice callouts with different colors, things like that. I think it goes into more detail than previous Tamiya instructions. Fire extinguishers are rarely ever called out in Tamiya instructions, and we get multiple colors. We get decals. 2 decals, 3 different color callouts. I think that's really, really nice. And then we get our canvas bags. And now these are, I think they're the coolest part of the kit. Kind of a silly thing to be calling the coolest part of the kit, but when we look at the plastic in a second here, I think you'll see why. The figure's awesome. The figure's really, really awesome. I love the grease gun. And then we get like the perfect amount of stowage. You could get more stowage than this. You know, Value Gear and some other companies do a lot of really nice stuff, but this really completes the turret ring. So I think that is one of the better parts of this kit as well. And then if you're watching, as I'm filming this, my build video for the M18 is getting uploaded or is already uploaded. And this looks to be the same piece that's in that. So we get a really nice 50 cal ammo box and everything that goes with that. So really, really nice detail there. Let's take a look at the plastic. And we'll start off with our upper hull, which pretty standard. You know, this is basically the M10 hull. But we get some nice cast texture here. Let's turn on the light now that we got the paper out of the way. Interesting choice, I will say. And now this is kind of classic Tamiya or Tamiya. This is molded on. Could have easily been a separate piece. I think that should have been a separate piece. If you are watching the M18 build, the M18 has really amazing non-photo etch plastic grills. Sure, they could have done something a little bit better there. At least the detail is super, super sharp. But potential, hate to say let down, but potential thing I immediately noticed. We have, looks like part of the firewall. We have our floor. We have a really nice cast texture on that front of the lower hull. The light will allow you to see that. And then we have other pieces. We have some ammunition, bottom of the lower hull. And then I really do like this, and I know that this is going to go together amazingly. This is our tow cable. It's going to be super fragile. So I would say be careful when you are sorting around all of the sprues. Those are really easy things for plastic to catch on itself and to break. And you'll probably never find that again because that will go flying. Anyways, we have our other pieces of the lower hull, our sidewalls here. Looks like fenders. And then we have some of the exhaust elements. We have some Pioneer tools and everything like that that looks really, really awesome. There's our fire extinguisher that we mentioned, super detailed. I mean, to the point where a resin isn't necessary. You know, it's that detailed, I think, at least. The tools are super detailed, which is, again, what makes it so interesting that some of these are solid molded. I mean, this door is super crisp, so I can't really be mad at it, but I know a lot of people are going to knock it for having that kind of blob detail, I like to call it, the molded on whatever. So, interesting choice there. We have a mini baby sprue here in awesome cast texture. Try to get the light caught in the right way, but really, really nice. And I think that's enough texture based on the H39 and some other recent builds that will show through the paint. What will be interesting to see is if it shows through the whitewash paint. I know it'll show through the olive drab, but as we kind of add paint layers, that'll be interesting. Then we have our turret ring, which I think is nicely, obviously slide molded here, but it's nicely, you know, half done, I guess. These can get really, really fragile, really, really quick. So that's one of those pieces where I'd actually kind of like less detail, like more things molded together. I know, which is it? Do we want more or do we want less? But sides of the turret ring, here are our canvas ammunition bag covers, which are awesome. I mean, that is the zipper detail. I don't even think resin can beat that. Maybe it could, but to the level of anything noticeable, I don't think so. Again, this figure looks awesome. I won't be building the figure to go like with the with the tank, because I'm not going to make a diorama or anything. I will 100% be saving this figure and building him separately just for his own base, which we'll probably get a video on that. We have the hand molded onto the grease gun. Really, really cool. Rest of the turret assembly here. We do have a one-piece barrel with basically no seam line. There is some seam line, muzzle brake, things like that. So no need for a metal barrel. There will be some cleanup. I'm sure there are already metal barrels available for this, but for our purposes, we will be building this out of the box. And I think that is one of the big wins on this kit, is that you can build it out of the box. You know, these tarps, these rolled up bags, it's just enough to cover that turret ring. You could get some things over the engine block and, you know, whatever. But this is enough. It's enough that it's more than what we got with the Hellcat. Maybe Value Gear will add some more detail. You know, you'll get more and more and more. You can make your own scratch stuff, but this is plenty. And they're really, really nicely detailed. They're not the same kind of reused pieces. Each one is individual. And again, silly thing to harp on, but I think you're going to make this kit really stand out. We get Lincoln length tracks. These are the pieces that will go obviously on the sides. We have our bogey assembly. The tracks are super detailed for you know, American tracks that aren't going to have any sag. What I would love to see Tamiya do here is give us a rubber band version as well. Do both. You know, a vinyl version. It can't cost that much. Who am I to say that? I don't produce vinyl tracks. We will have some injector pin marks to clean up there. They are on all of the insides at least. So we will get little indicator marks on where to line the tracks up, which is really, really nice. But on a vehicle like this, I think it would make it a lot more approachable for different kind of skill levels. If this is anything like the Hellcat, which it kind of looks like a slightly easier version, you're still going to have a turret ring and some stuff like that. That painting is going to make this an intermediate kit. No matter, you know, no matter how easily the rest of the kit assembles, that turret ring makes this an intermediate kit. At least, and that's my opinion. So having some rubber band tracks, something more approachable, would make this just a more approachable kit for different, you know, integrate that beginner level kind of thing. Anyways, 50 cal, this is the AA sprue that's used in a ton of different Tamiya kits. It is a absolutely perfectly detailed 50 cal, in my opinion. The only thing that, the only place where I think it suffers is that the seam line in the ammunition is pretty big. And really, really difficult to get rid of that. We do have poly caps. Some of them will be for the idlers, and some of them will be for the turret, I'm sure, to move. We have very few decals, which I think will make this shine way above the M18, because the M18 had way too many, and the decals on that were not good. But we do have some nice, I love these for the ammo. I think that's a huge addition. We also have the ones for our fire extinguisher, and I do like a nice white star. So I think just enough details there. And then we have some clear parts. We have some goggles. Nothing too crazy to show there. But that's our M18. Or sorry, M36. I'm building too many tank destroyers at once. I think this is going to be an absolute home run of a kit. There is nothing to suggest otherwise. There are tons of options that come in the box. I think that's what makes this kit great, is that you don't need to go outside of the box to make a really nice kit. That's where I think a lot of things kind of get crazy in this hobby, and they get crazy really fast. Is you buy a kit for 50 bucks. The resin tracks are $35, $40. Then the value gear, even though it's inexpensive at 10 bucks, all of a sudden you're building these kits that are $150. It's not sustainable. It's not something that, if you mess up, you're going to be more angry. $49, I think this kit was, US. It's all in here. We don't need anything else. My only real critique would be if Tamiya included rubber band tracks. I would probably just use the rubber band tracks. I don't think that these are necessarily, they don't need to be more detailed, but I've seen vinyl tracks that are pretty much that good. So anyways, that is my review. We will be building this kit up definitely very quickly. I'm very excited about this. You should see that in the next week or two. And when we get to painting, we are definitely going to do some winter camouflage. So if you've made it this far and you haven't already, I please ask you to like and subscribe to the channel. We will also be finishing up at the same time the M18, 2 tank destroyers at once, and we can do a comparison at the end, because I think it'll be one of those kits where people are looking and they're saying, do I want this one or do I want this one? So that will be what we do kind of at the end. But I appreciate you guys watching. We'll see you on the build video.